Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex-partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett, and today we have a special guest star. Not a movie star, but we will talk a little bit about how you're in the movies in a bit here, Jai, okay? We have Jai Kissoon with us from Our Family Wizard, and today is a little different because, Brooke, you know oodles and oodles about this, and I know a little, so I'm going to have you do a little bit more of the navigating here. So why don't you start us off here and tell us who the heck is Jai, why are we listening, and how does this affect people that are fighting with a nasty ex?
Thanks, Charlie. So my relationship with Jai started probably 14, maybe 15 years ago now. I was just starting out with the high conflict diversion program. I had reached out to Jai. We have talked over the years, and the Family Wizard platform that they've developed is really, I think, integral into the use of what I do with my clients around tracking high conflict conversations and getting them to be able to really disengage. We've talked about the disengagement stuff in previous podcasts, and this is a way for parents that are in conflict or not in conflict just to really have concise discussions, to be able to go back and forth and really reduce the level of angst that may be in their communication styles, for them to be able to really be able to look back through the threads, see what's been agreed on, what's been communicated. And what I'd really like to do is open up here a little bit of discussion with you, Jai, around how you guys got started, what was the driving piece for the development of this incredible software that you guys have put together, and how you see it working with parents, particularly in conflict, because that's the content of what we're talking about here today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having me on the show today. Appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about what we do. Basically, yeah, we're a big family company, actually. My mom was a divorce attorney for 25 years, practiced exclusively in family law, did a lot of really high asset complex cases, and it was actually her cousin, his name is Paul, who called my mom up with a question because he'd had his first Christmas together as a divorced dad, and they went to schedule Christmas vacation, and basically one parent said, I'll take this week, the other parent said, I'll take that week. Well, one parent thought a week meant 5 days, the other parent thought a week meant 7 days, and just a simple miscommunication led to kind of World War III for the family. And so they ended up booking overlapping trips, and the kids had kind of a miserable Christmas. And so he called my mom up and said, is there anything out there to deal with this stuff? And I just happened to be finishing up my last year of business school at the University of Minnesota. And so my mom came to me and said, what do you, first, can you find anything? And there was really nothing out there. And the one thing you'll notice kind of with technology in general is there's lots of solutions for individuals and there's lots of solutions for businesses. There's not a lot of solutions designed specifically for families. We're starting to see more stuff now, but back in 2001, when people were still handing out AOL CDs, there just wasn't a lot of technology.
I remember those.
Oh yeah, everybody does. So I looked into it, and there was really nothing out there, and we decided to move forward with it. I ended up writing the business plan as kind of my senior paper to graduate with. And when I graduated in the spring of that 2001, basically became employee number one and started work on developing the product with, we had a team of outside developers that created the first kind of beta and alpha versions of the site. And we, it was really kind of interesting because when we first built the company, we thought like, hey, this is something parents are going to want to use because they just don't want conflict in their life. They want to keep things organized. And what we found is that we tended to gravitate more towards families in more of a high conflict situation than low conflict. And it turns out that if there's not really conflict, a lot of times like people don't have issues as much, and so they can use email or they're able to pick up a phone and talk to their ex. with families where the relationship's a little bit more strained, having a tool like us to facilitate kind of the back and forth from mom to dad can be very advantageous. And, the example I use of, when we first started this, the kind of thing that we were trying to help avoid was, every time I call my lawyer calls the other parent's lawyer, the lawyer calls that parent, make a decision, then you've got that chain all the way back. You're incurring tons and tons of legal bills to handle things that really should be, handled by the parents in terms of, if I'm going to be out of town this weekend and I need to trade a day or whatever it may be. I mean, these are a lot of things that don't necessarily need professional help, quote unquote. And so, we have developed, like I said, the platform itself has got a number of different features. It's really broken out. One of our main goals is to get families kind of out of the long, nasty email messages to each other and really more into kind of a business-like communication template. So, for instance, instead of sending a long message that contains a bunch of different points like need to trade a day, need to be reimbursed for an expense, need this, we have different sections of the site. And so like one of the areas of the site is our calendar. And that was kind of what got things started in the first place. And with our calendar, you actually have multiple layers of the calendar because much like life, it's very complex. So you have kind of your base parenting schedule where you'll have the days color coded when the kids are with mom, when they're with dad. On top of that, you can trade days, as I mentioned. We have a patented feature where parents can actually, I'd say, hey, mom, if you take the kids this weekend, I'll take them in 2 weeks. And then mom can approve or refuse, or maybe refuse and make a counteroffer because 2 weeks from now doesn't work, but 3 weeks does. You have all of these exchanges documented. So if you go back to court, it's really clear why your parenting schedule was adjusted from what was originally there.
That's a really interesting piece right there, Jai, because I didn't know that piece was in your software at this point. Mm-hmm. And also, from my standpoint, I really encourage people not to do changes because it gets into this wild back and forth where, if I give you this, then you give me that, and it's this quid pro quo. Yep. That's fantastic that piece is there so they can, if they choose to go in that direction, they can just simply open it up and they can match the stuff up through the software. They don't have to talk. Yep. And that they can wrap that piece around. That's awesome because, again, coming back when you and I started this, I mean, our paths have been somewhat similar in terms of timing. And when we came into this concept of high conflict was, it was kind of poo-pooed. It's like, you guys have to co-parent, you have to do these things in a particular way. And if you did a web search on high conflict, I mean, there was really nothing there. And now we fast forward 15, 16 years and it's all over the place. Yep. And it's all about how to manage the communication system. I mean, this is everything in it, right?
Well, and one of the things that I know that you focus on in your program as well is that, just like back in the day, you were either autistic or you weren't. We're finding out that everybody lives on spectrums, and so when you have personality disorders or a confrontational person on the other side, having tools to kind of disarm those people and keep things matter of fact and frank and not getting yourself engaged, as you mentioned, is incredibly important. And so, one of our big focuses is by providing these kind of tools like the trade swap and like, a lot of the other features on the site, you move away from these long, nasty messages. And instead it's very matter of fact, like here's the date, here's the time, here's the other date, here's the other time. What's your decision? It doesn't have to be this big emotional interplay. It really keeps it very kind of simple, succinct, and to the point. And as I mentioned, there's like many levels to this too. So like the trading feature, that's just one of them. The other thing you can do with the calendar is actually set up holidays. And so like Mother's Day is always going to be Mom's Day and Father's Day is always going to be Father's Day or Dad's Day. It's easy to set that up. Additionally, you can do like all the kids, like spring break, winter break, all of these different schedules that kind of come in and interfere with what is the normal parenting schedule. You can accommodate all of that as well. And then
the visual makes such a big difference with that, doesn't it? I mean, just for them to be able to see that, it's like, I don't have to check in. I don't have to remind. I don't have to have that next interaction that is a potential trigger for for some sort of conflict to come up. I find that to be just one of the basic pieces that you guys put together that people can look at and go, bang, yeah, I got it.
Can I say something about that, Brooke? As a parent?
Yeah.
I just went through a summer, only two kids, but I just went through a summer where there were probably 6 or 7 different camps. And then I do have a child that goes to the doctor, but they both go to the doctor a lot, but one of them goes more than the other. And the doctor's appointments kept changing, and then the summer camps were canceled, and then they were back on, and all that was tried to be handled through text.
Yep.
Because I'm on a different...
And that becomes incredibly difficult to manage, because which was really the last message? What was our last communication? Was it this one from Tuesday or Wednesday, or where did we actually leave things stand? And this way, it's just very crystal clear. The other thing is instead of digging through 500 messages, whether it be text or email, trying to figure out what the decision was, you just go to the calendar, you look at this weekend, and you know what the plan is. There's not this kind of convoluted, you don't need a decoder ring to figure out what's going on.
I can't find my decoder ring for high conflict divorce.
Yeah.
Brooke was as close as I found. Brooke is my decoder ring.
Well, an OFW is a decoder ring. I mean, that's really what it does here. It just pulls everything in and puts it in order.
And it doesn't sleep or ride horses, so it's going to always be there for me, right?
So, in addition, then even our simple activity scheduling. So you're going to schedule your kids' soccer practice, violin lessons, whatever it may be. With a normal calendar, you just put in your date, your time, you have the event, you can share it, all that good stuff. But with our calendar, you actually can designate who the parent is that's going to be dropping off the child, who the parent is that's going to be responsible for the child during the event, and who's going to be picking up the child afterwards. And this is all color coded on the calendar, so it's really quick and easy to see. Oh yeah, it's soccer this Wednesday. I have to pick up Johnny at 6 p.m. or whatever it may be. So that's the calendaring piece of it. We also have a messaging platform within the system. The messaging works just like email, except for it's all self-contained. And so the benefit here is you don't have to deal with, my junk mail filter got it, or my mail server was down. If something is sent through our site and shows up in your sent messages folder, it is guaranteed to be in the other person's inbox. In addition, we also mark when stuff is read. So you're not dealing with, I never saw that, I don't know what you're talking about. You can actually see that the other parent, viewed the message that you sent them at what time. And because chronology matters a lot in these cases, if you have to let the other parent know about parent-teacher conferences 7 days or 14 days before the event happens, this is a way to clearly show and document that you're meeting your parenting obligations.
What you knew and when you knew it.
Yeah, exactly. And additionally, within the message board, so you can do attachments, spell check, all that, but we have a premium feature called Tone Meter. And Tone Meter is basically like spell check for your attitude. And so as parents are writing a message, it'll actually give them feedback that this message could be considered aggressive, humiliating, concerning. We give them back kind of like, it's like a yield flag, like, are you sure this is what you want to send? And so we have semantic processing that looks and actually reads through the messages and can determine the context of which you're saying stuff. It's pretty cool.
And Tone Meter is really the movie star here, right?
Yep.
So the listeners don't know, but I went to see the movies Mile 22 with Mark Wahlberg, and all of a sudden there's Our Family Wizard, right? In a kind of a comedic way, right? That girl, a Navy SEAL personality going through a divorce, and she can't stop cursing. She's all tough and stuff. And Tone Meter, I guess, right? That's what they were kind of showing, is no.
Exactly.
That's pretty fun. I like seeing that software in the movies.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun little thing for us. We got approached out of the blue, and they said, hey, we want to include your brand in the movie as kind of a subplot, and we were super excited and honored to it's kind of fun to pierce the veil of pop culture and actually have somebody come to us with that.
Pretty awesome too, because it wasn't pay to play. It's not like they said, okay, there's 3 or 4 companies that do something in this world, let's bid it out, and whoever pays the most, and all of a sudden you're in for a couple million to have they just said, can we do, somebody believed in it. It was on the set or something, right?
Yeah, we have no idea exactly how they found out about us, but our assumption, we do a lot of business in California, and so the assumption is probably like a production person or a script writer, somebody involved in the movie must have been a subscriber of ours and, decided to write us in. So it was a pretty exciting moment for us.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I'll run through I'll wrap up like kind of the description of the rest of the sections. So the calendar, we spend a lot of time message board. There's also a thing we call the info bank, and in that it's supposed to be basically like the kitchen refrigerator that you used to have, but to share between the two homes. So you can store in the kids' shoe sizes, height, weight, medical conditions, immunization histories. You can scan in documents like report cards, the judgment decree, kids' class photos, all that stuff you can upload to a section we call My Files, which is a section within the info bank. And then we also have a journal, which like within the calendar, there's a lot of business rules. So like one of them is you can't edit things historically or backdate entries. You can only work forward. So the journal is kind of that place where you can keep your history. And then lastly, we have an expense log for tracking all the shared expenses. So if you go to the doctor, pay a copay, basically you need to be reimbursed 50% or 20% or 80%, depending on what your decree or your agreements are. You enter that expense, and much like the trade swap, it'll actually send a request to the other parent for them to approve or refuse the expense. And then once the expense has been approved, the other parent can make payment to you directly through the site, where they can, we call it OFW pay. They basically send an ACH transaction, and that way you kind of lose that whole conversation about the check is in the mail, or I didn't know this, or it's all there for easy documentation.
Could they set up an Autopay piece with that as well?
Pardon me?
Could they set up Autopay through that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can set up recurring payments, and so most parents use it for, like I said, like medical reimbursements, or you're paying for the kids' activities or whatever it may be. But we also have some parents that will actually pay child support and alimony directly through the site as well, so that all the documentation is in one place.
Nice.
Sweet. One of the other things that I push for when I'm talking with my clients about using your platform in particular is you guys are sitting on a secure server, right?
Oh, most definitely, yeah. We're actually, our equipment is being hosted in what used to be the old Federal Reserve here in Minneapolis with Atomic Data, and they're SOX certified. We have, I would say from a data protection layer, we take this incredibly serious. We've been doing this since 2001, and so all of our equipment runs in a private cloud, and we, have almost 99% uptime in terms of accessibility. Backups of data, we never delete anything, so your data is not only safe in terms of in transit, but once it's in the system, you know that it's not going to go anywhere. I know some of the other players in our space, they don't retain records. So we have records going back, all the way to 2001, 2002 of parents' interactions, because you'd be amazed at how history plays a part in the future. If you do find yourself back in court, being able to go back to previous agreements, previous discussions, having that stuff always available. And so we've had people that have gone off the site for 4 or 5 years. Then somebody starts dating or something comes up, everything gets stressful, and rather than having to reestablish accounts, they just jump back in to where they were, and all that data is there and ready to go.
Right, and it's secure. Somebody can't come in and manipulate it. It can't be hacked like emails. I mean, the stuff, the value of this is just, it goes on and on and on. And like you said, Jai, that ability to go back and pull this stuff. I mean, we're talking about a high conflict personality that is involved here. And if they've started this when the child is young, this stuff doesn't stop. I mean, it can go on for 10 or 15 years. And to be able to have a historical record like that and to push it, to be able to go back and grab that and put it in real time to a counselor, an FCS person, a judge, it's like they can see what's happened. And for me, I do a lot of PC work, parenting and coordinating, and to be able to step into the platform to see, again, in real time, the communications that are going on between the two are incredibly valuable to me. So I can get a tone of what's going on without getting it from each person. It's like, yeah, I can see exactly what's happening here, and I can start to help make decisions quicker, and that saves time and money for my client. They're not getting billed for me to listen to them go back and forth at each other. I can just step in and go, yeah, I can see what's going on here, and this is where we want to move, to the next piece.
Yeah, and that's
it's
one
so
thing
valuable on so many levels.
One thing I forgot to mention too is, so like within the system I described the features, but there's also different levels of account access. And so mom and dad each have what we call the parent account. We also have what we call a third party account, which is great for a step parent, a grandparent, or if you have a coach that's really involved in the kid's life. We have the child accounts, and they have limited access, so they can see shared portions of data, but like all of the expense information is totally obscured from their view. They don't get to see any of that stuff. And then we also have professional accounts, which allow people like Brooke to jump in and work with families, and we have 2 levels of access with that. So if you're working with a lawyer, your lawyer can have access to your information without violating the other parent's privacy. But if you have somebody who's a neutral that's working with both parties, they can actually see everything within the family that's shared, that hasn't been deemed private. Because another one of the features too with the site is everything by default is shared, but you can use the site to keep private records as well. So, if you're keeping your own medical information, you can mark that stuff as private because you probably don't want your ex to know, what your blood pressure is these days or whatever it may be. Maybe you do, but yeah, all that stuff is recorded, and you can kind of deem the appropriate level of access. And as Brooke was just talking about, it's super handy for the professional because they can go in, and instead of worrying about did my client forward me every email in regards to the subject matter, like you just jump in and you get to see everything from the parent's perspective, and so you don't have to worry about having pieces of information left out from the story, so to speak.
Wouldn't that be really important, Brooke, with what we talked about last week, that like judges are busy. They're not spending 4 or 5 hours on every case and reading the person that we're dealing with, these personality conflicts, or the high conflict person on the other side, can look really good in the courtroom. Their only time in front of the judge, they can look really good, and just for whatever reason, some of these behaviors, without digging deeper, just look like a concerned parent, where it may be somebody with ridiculous control issues. Wouldn't this whole history of, look, every time I ask for anything, they say no, they're late every time, drop, wouldn't this whole history be very useful for a judge to see what they're like in real life, not for the 20 minutes they're in front of them?
For sure. And what a lot of my clients are able to do is to go into our Family Wizard, to be able to pull the history up, to follow the threads, and pull out the pertinent pieces, and sift through the minutia. So when they put that in front of a counselor, in front of a judge, that it's really easy for them to track. Is that right, Jai? Is that?
Yep. And everything on the site comes with like pre-formatted PDF reports, so that everything prints really nice. And so if you do find yourself going to court, it's very easy to get the records that you need out of the system so that you can present them in a time efficient and effective way. And we've gone, so far as the certain reports, like in the expense log, we even have like a number of different reports, so you can look at your data, whether you want to see all the actions that happen chronologically, you want to see everything that happened transactionally, and then there's also like summary reports, so you can see which parent owes which parent how much and under what categories and all that good stuff. So, I mean, the one thing that I can say for us is we do all of our own development. We're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have a team of about 40 on our staff now, between customer support and technology. And so we don't
I remember when you were 5.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We've grown so much in the space that we are taking over a new office building. So we're doing kind of a new build out, and it's going to be super exciting to have the place that we're in now. We've kind of organically grown and taken over kind of the whole second floor of this building, and this will allow us to really design out like a optimum environment for our developers to work together and be able to collaborate and create new stuff for us.
This has really become the gold standard, I think, for online software, conflict management tools. There are other players out there, Talking Parents. There's a couple of new ones that are trying to do this, but it's kind of a one-off as I see it. There's some that, yeah, what I've really enjoyed about watching the development of your company, Jai, is you guys really have not upped your prices. You've been pretty reasonable along the way, and I see other players come in, and I'm not trying to really make this a commercial for you guys. It's just really what I see in the marketplace as other tools that are out there, and I'm wondering, free versus, I think you guys are $100 a piece a year for this coming on. And what I was talking about earlier is the advantages of so much of the stuff that you guys offer within the platform really more than pays for itself.
Yeah, I mean, the logic that we came up with when we developed our pricing was pretty simple. Basically, we wanted the cost of the site for the whole family to be less than one hour of most legal services. And, so $200 for the whole family. Most lawyers are billing out $250 plus. If this thing keeps you out of court once, it's paid for itself 10 times over. The one thing I'll say about, well, I guess a couple things I'll say. First off, if you're low income, we scholarship any family that can't afford to pay our fees. That's one thing my partners were very dedicated to at the beginning, was not making this a tool for the haves and not the have-nots, because as it turns out, the people with less funds available typically need our help even more because they can't afford the fancy professionals to help them work through the process. And so we're very committed.
How come I didn't know that you guys scholarship stuff out? How come I didn't know that?
Yeah, we definitely do, and we have for a long time. We also provide. One thing we noticed a long time ago was we had an unduly high number of military veterans and active service duty members, and so we developed a program where basically you get a buy one get one free if you have served in the military, because again, we want to try to give back, and we want to be very socially conscious with what we're doing, and we understand that the deployments and the stress that goes along with being in a military family has also carried with it a higher divorce rate than your average bear, so to speak.
For sure, and a higher level of conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And if you got one parent halfway across the world trying to plan out your leave so that when you get home you get to maximize the time you spend with your kids, it's all very important stuff. So we want to definitely be a part of that. In terms of the other competitors in the space, there's all kinds of different models. One thing I would say is if you're looking at one that says that they're free, first thing I would ask is, are they really free? Because a lot of them aren't. There's hidden fees, like I know with Talking Parents, for instance, they say that they're free, but if you want to use the app, you have to pay a fee. If you want to get reports out of the system, you have to pay per page for that, and their per page fee is much higher than ours. So there's always, we don't have a per page fee, rather. I mean, all the reports are free with the system when you pay for the subscription. So there's a lot there. The other thing I would be really wary about is if they're free, there's also usually a strong chance that they're selling your information.
Right.
Because you got to make money somehow. So either they're funding it through advertisements or through, selling lists. And so, with us, we felt like the money that you could make from advertising paled in comparison to the value that the family gained by having this be solely focused on them and them alone. And
this has been really educational for me. I mean, I'm picking up pieces here, and I've known you for 15, 16 years now. And yeah, this is some stuff that I haven't been aware of. This is great.
Yeah. And this is the one cool thing about doing this for as long as we have is we've figured out a lot of things along the way. I'm not going to say we're perfect. We've made mistakes, but we've learned from them, and we've improved the product, the platform. I'd say we're the only one in our space that actually has truly native apps for both iPhone and Android, as well as a fully featured website. And that's another big thing for accessibility. Some of the apps are only available on iPhone or only available on Android, or they don't have apps at all. And so it's been pretty amazing to watch, because when we first launched our apps, some of my partners weren't sure if that whole app thing was going to take off. And now we see probably 60-70% of our traffic comes from mobile apps.
What are some of the difficulties that you guys have encountered with the use and misuse of your platform?
Well, in the early days, part of the reason why everything is stamped with, so every page on our site gets earmarked with the last time both parents viewed it. Every entry is marked with who created it, when it was created, and all that kind of information. And so, like, way back in 2002, we had a family that was very high conflict start using the site. We didn't have those earmarks to begin with. And so, like, one of the parents went in, made it look like the other parent had messed up the whole schedule because they put everything in that other parent's color. It made them look like that one parent was domineering, the schedule. And so, the guy called me up. He said, my schedule looks all messed up. We're supposed to use your site to help like avoid this kind of confusion. And so literally the next day we added that stamp to it, and lo and behold, all those like facetious events were deleted and removed from the calendar. And so one of the things that we've kind of found over the years is that sunshine is the best disinfectant, so to speak. Creating
For
creating
sure.
visibility, creating accountability is just, you avoid so much headache. Like, why sit here and argue over which version of reality is closer to the truth when we can just look at the truth?
Well, this is what we know about high conflict personalities and personality disorders is they are perseverating over this stuff, trying to find a way in to manipulate, to change a narrative or to change somebody's perspective of what they're seeing. And this platform in particular really takes that out. And one of the things that I work with my clients all of the time is get the hell off of the telephone, get off of text messages, get off of any form of communication that isn't trackable, and put this stuff in a platform that eliminates the ability for deception. But not only that, when we're dealing with these types of personalities, their storytelling and the vitriol that comes out that they unwittingly spill even into your platform, even going beyond, saying to hell with the attitude monitor that's in there, we're just going to just blow this out, is a feature. It's not a bug. It's like, now we can see what we're looking at. And this is so incredibly helpful.
The other side of it too is like, we tend to talk about, the high conflict person, because it's not always both people. Sometimes you have one party that's a little more high conflict. And
right.
the person who's not the high conflict person has to kind of endure, right? And so by putting all the communication through our site, we had a psychologist tell us this a long time ago, basically creates asynchronous communication. So instead of you sitting at your desk at work trying to get your stuff done, all of a sudden you get blasted with an email or a text message out of the blue. Your what was a good day becomes a really bad day because now you're, stressing over some parenting situation instead of being able to focus on your job. With our site, you don't get these things randomly out of the blue. You can really kind of compartmentalize yourself to go and prepare yourself in a mindset that you can go down and deal with the family stuff. And so you log into the site when you're ready to. That being said, like, our apps do push notifications that tell you that something happened. They don't tell you what happened, though, because we want to mark that you read that actual entry.
And that's an option too, though. I mean, they don't have to have that push notification. They can choose to turn it off and look at this and compartmentalize, where I'm going to look at this tomorrow or I'm going to look at this tonight. I'm not going to have this run my life. And like Charlie and I were talking about last week in our podcast, is so much of this is driven by nervous system reaction. And when we can get one of the parties to down-regulate that and to compartmentalize and get more into the mainstream of their life, they become less reactive. And by that piece alone, it can start to scrub off some of the level of conflict that's taking place. It's really beautiful.
Most definitely. And the other big benefit that we haven't discussed at all, which is probably the most important piece, is like, you take your kids out of the middle of the conversation. A lot of times parents love to just say, hey, tell your dad this, tell your mom this. And what they don't realize is the stress that it puts on the child is just immense, because, if you're the one that has to tell dad that, mom can't pick me up on Thursday, from school. Now dad's stressing about how he's going to make arrangements to pick you up, and all of that
Right.
frustration gets vented on the child, and the child shouldn't have to carry that burden.
Yeah, the class that I was teaching last night, the segment that we were on, is getting the kids out of the middle and not having the children, and not taking messages from the other side through the children, and not delivering messages, because there's always something in there. There's always a snide remark or a attitude that comes in that hits the child, and no matter what the situation is, the children love both of their parents, and when you hit them with a smack, it hits that's intended for the other parent. It hits the child. So again, yeah, this just eliminates that back and forth conversation, and it helps eliminate the children from being in the middle of this. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And I mean, yeah, even the little thing, like you put a note in the kid's backpack for the other parent. Well, if your kid's old enough to read, you don't think the kid's going to read that note. You know what I mean? It's just, the kids are really smart, and they're very attentive,
Right.
and they know what's going on. They're not, we tend to not give them enough credit, I think.
Right. So I want to bring a piece in here, and I think I want to elicit an opinion from you on this, Jai, as well as maybe a way to run around this with you. So I virtually almost insist, if I can, that every one of the people that come through my class, or every one of the people that come through working with me, implement using one of these tools, and I direct them to you again for all of the reasons that we've talked about today. And oftentimes, one of the parents don't want to go in that direction. The hook is, I call this negative intimacy, and it's using conflict to stay in contact. And when we remove initially the phone call, when we initially remove the text messaging, and we remove the email component, we'll have a parent that says, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to pay for it. I'm not going to step into that. I want to do this by phone or text messages. And what I'll tell the parent is, you know what? This is what I want you to do. I want you to go to OFW. I want you to sign it up. I want you to pay for both sides of this. And I want you to tell the other parent that this is the only platform that I am going to communicate with you through. And if you keep trying this other stuff, I'm not going to answer you. And what I find is, at some point, because there's such a need for this contact from this high conflict parent, that they will acquiesce. Do you see another way around that, or some way that I can streamline that on my end?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we see a lot of is, we actually have courts now that will order people to use this in contested cases, but more often than not, we will have parties. Typically, much like you described, you'll have one party that's interested in kind of alleviating the stress, creating the using the platform so that everything's documented. The other parent isn't so into it. But oftentimes, if the parent brings it to the court's attention, says, hey, I want to use this, I've already paid for it, can we get it stipulated to? And so they'll add stipulation language in the court itself. Otherwise, they may, if they're doing mediation, include a paragraph, basically saying and memorializing that both parents will agree to use the site. And that can be tremendously important on the onset, because you want to get that commitment from the very get-go that both parents are going to be using.
Absolutely.
I think that helps. One of the other things that, you were saying, the strategies on how to deal with it. I've talked to some parents in the past, and they literally, when the parent sends them something via email or via text message or whatever, the response is always very simple. Please check our family wizard.
Right.
And you just leave it at that. And it's not that I don't want to communicate with you. We have a forum for this, and it's not supposed to be email.
Right. So I think what I was driving at here, though, Jai, because I want this in as early as I can, because it is so helpful for my clients. I mean, my 3 rules, the 3 rules that I put into this program forever and ever and ever are what, Charlie?
Disengage, disengage, disengage.
Right. And through that disengagement, that really helps my clients settle their nervous system. I mean, it's like they say, when I started doing that, my life got better. I take these people through my 9-week course. They sit down and I ask them consistently on the last night of their class, what is the most valuable piece that you took from this class? And it's the 3 rules. And to me, using OFW is tantamount to that. I mean, it's such a solid basis for that. Mm-hmm. And when I can get them to go in this direction and demand it unilaterally without the court stipulation, in other words, to me, communication is a delivery system. It is information being delivered between 2 parents. And email is typically that easiest platform. We're going to do it through email, and we can get people to do it that. And to me, what I'll tell them is you know what? At its simplest piece, our Family Wizard at its simplest piece is an email platform. And if you're paying for that platform, there's no reason on God's green earth that the other person should not engage in that. Mm-hmm. And if we put that forward, even if they're going to court for the first time and they say, Your Honor, listen, I've been trying to get this person to communicate through a platform that you all know I'm paying for it. Mm-hmm. Is there any reason that we can't use this? I can't see a judge in the country that wouldn't say, well, why don't you do this? So it's kind of shining a light. You said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. This is shining a light again on this person's behavior.
Yep. And often, like, I've heard judges say in the past too, where they've asked people to use our site just to see if the person would comply. Like, are you committed to your kid's best interests? Are you committed to their well-being? And if you can't even take this little baby step towards moving your family forward, and it just, it's a little bit mind-boggling. But like you said, there's a lot of other things at play here, and power, control, manipulation, those are all tools of high conflict people. And so being put onto a site like this, they know what's going to happen, and they don't want it because it's hard to have the wiggle room that they get to play in now.
So let me ask you a question, because you talked a little bit earlier in our conversation about scholarships. Yep. And if I send a person to you, mm-hmm. Initially, and this is kind of what's going on, would you give a scholarship for this first year to the other side just to get them into the platform?
We do it only based on financial need. So
okay.
That's the way it's been worked out. I mean, typically, if we have a professional who's doing pro bono work for somebody and they say, hey, I want to have this person on the site, we'll honor that request. If they're on an informa pauperis or, government assistance in terms of like filing court fees, we typically will follow like whatever the fee waiver structure is that they're on with the court system. But it's also
sometimes this is the case.
Yep. And so, but I mean, we're always willing, like I said, we don't want costs to be an issue. If somebody can't afford the $100 up front, we've worked out payment plans with people if need be. Like I said, we want this to be available to people. The other piece of it too is we're finding more and more professionals, mediators especially, that are actually buying our accounts and including them as part of their retainer agreement, where they're just like, hey, if you're going to work with me, you're going to use our Family Wizard, period.
What does that look like, buying a package as a professional?
Yeah, but basically we give you, a discount based on the number of accounts that you purchase. The more accounts you purchase, the more of a discount you get. But it starts, usually we'll sell like a package of like 10 accounts and you get like basically 10 or 12% off. And that way, like I said, the parents just then get a promo code that they put in place of the credit card number, and that, then they can just get activated. a lot of professionals actually will go to the trouble of setting up the families as well. So like if I'm going to take you on as a client, part of their intake process is they're going to generate their Our Family Wizard accounts and apply those promo codes. So
nice.
yeah.
Charlie, do you have any questions here? I mean, you've been in this world as a parent, so I'm interested to hear what you've got in here before we put a close to this.
I know I'm having a fun experience on my side because, like, while we're talking, my ex called my phone. I'm in the middle of going through the 4-step sign up process. At the end, I'm like, oh, is there a promo code? And then Brooke's like, do we have a promo code? I'm like, wow, I'm tracking here. I've been on Talking Parents since my original attorney told me to do it 2 years ago, and man, Jai, I'm telling you, it was so annoying when I'm like, where's the app? Like, I don't want to go to a website. I'm on my cell phone and I see this email, you have a new Talking Parents message, and I'm like, okay, how do I check it? I have to go to the browser and type. It's just a pain, So, and I remember, I seriously remember going and saying, okay, I want to use the app, and they say it's $5 a month or whatever it is. And I didn't like it. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. I didn't like it emotionally. I never got the app.
I think one of the challenges too with Talking Parents is it's primarily focused on just messaging, and frankly, I try to encourage parents to not message as much as possible. I would much rather see people, you want to let the other parent know about the kid's shoe size, you put it in the shoe size. You want to let them know about an expense, you enter an expense, because it's these long, nasty emails. You hear a lot of times in these parenting classes like Brooks, they'll talk about business-like communication, and they talk about trying to keep it very short and concise and one issue per conversation, as opposed to loading a message with 15 different things that need to be covered. And so, by using our system, it really is like all of these things that classes like Brooks try to teach kind of in practice, so to speak.
Yep. I mean, this is a pretty big deal for me, Brooke. That anytime I'm not one of those dads who said, I hate you, I'm leaving, I'm not paying anything until after the divorce, so that 2-3 years later I have all this like child support in arrears. And I know those cases, right? Where the mom who's been left or whatever has to fend for her own for like 3 years until there's a settlement. I paid the entire time an estimated amount that we came up with that seemed like it would be reasonable, and it ended up being kind of right on track. But I will tell you, the expenses have been a disaster. Like, I'm paying for everything, right? And then every time we go to court, there's a whole bunch of new ones. And it's like, okay, you got to bring it up to speed. And what do you think she should pay half of? And, oh man, I wish I had a place to have tracked that the entire time, just when I go pay for something, right here. Oh, an orthodontist bill just came through, or I paid for vocal lessons. For people who are good, they're like kind of an accounting type of a person. That's probably not an issue because they just track everything in their life anyway, because they're anal. Who knows? Whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not that way. I don't write everything down after a day of spending. You know what I mean? So that would have been super useful. And then the calendar, that's the reason I'm signing up right now. And the other thing is, while we were married, I enjoyed communicating, well, sometimes, but I didn't mind saying, hey, when's the doctor's appointment, or what's the doctor's, where's the address, or whatever. I didn't mind asking and having her be sort of the retention of information person for part of it. I was the worker, she was the pay the bills.
Whoa. Are you signing up for OFW right now while we're talking, Charlie?
I told you, I'm on step 4 waiting for a promo code. I'm a frugal financial advisor. I'm going to wait till we hang up and say, Brooke, do we have a promo code? Yeah, I'm all the way through step 4. And I see the button. I mean, in step 1, I'm like, oh my gosh, is it going to send an email to the other person and then they're not going to pay? And then I get to step 4 and it says button, pay for co-parent. I'm like, yes, they thought of everything. And my point is, I don't want to treat my ex like my wife. I don't want to have to call and say, where's the address for the doctor's meeting and you know what I mean? I would much rather have, and what's their shoe size when I want to buy shoes. So I love those features.
Okay. So we're kind of at the end of the time that we put here. Is there something else that you want to put in here, Jai or Charlie? And what I'd also like to do as we finish up is for you to just give how people can get contact with you, Jai, and
So one of the big differences
utilize your
between
platform.
us and other people in the space is we have actual live humans that answer the phone all week long. We have a staff of about 10 people in our customer support department, and we've trained them to be very, very compassionate people because we understand the difficulties that would bring somebody to use our site. So you can go to the website directly, www.ourfamilywizard.com. Otherwise, you can download our apps in the app stores. The apps won't work unless you have a subscription, which you need to sign up for through the website. But once you're signed up through the website, you just log into the apps with your username and password. And then you can do Face ID and Touch ID and all that good stuff as well. But yeah, we have customer support. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to call our toll-free number, which is 1-866-755-9991. And like I said, we're staffed here pretty much 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then we have hours on the weekend as well if anybody has issues that need to be addressed.
And is that Central Time?
Yep, Central Time. Yeah, but yeah, no, I encourage people to check it out. We do a 30-day money-back guarantee, so we don't have a free trial, but if you are, for whatever reason, not satisfied with the product within the first 30 days, we will definitely refund you, no questions asked. The biggest thing is get into the site, use all the features. The more stuff you put in there, the better value it's going to offer to your family. Just a quick little anecdotal story, like when I was doing support, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, I had a dad call me up after the Christmas holidays, literally in tears, because this was the first year that he was able to go Christmas shopping and not have to call his ex and find out the kids' clothing sizes and deal with that conversation about what a bad parent he is because he didn't know that, little Jimmy's a size 4 shoe now and whatever. And this just goes back to knowledge is power. The more information that you can share with the other parent, the better both of you will be. And that's like kind of the really neat thing is Charlie, you were describing how you oftentimes have one person in the family who's really good at keeping records and tracking things, and the other parent may not be so good at it. Well, the good news is that if both of you are putting effort into putting information into the site, you both will have yielded like a ton of benefit from that information being there. And instead of having 2 copies of everything, you just put it in the one shared receptacle, and it's good to go.
Yep. Sounds awesome.
And I find oftentimes that one parent will withhold and one parent will be more than willing to give the information out. And I always tell my parents, be the person who's willing to put the information out, post it up on Our Family Wizard, get that information out there, because that's a way that the other person isn't going to come to you and say, gimme, you didn't give me. Just really, on that side of the fence, really helps downgrade the conflict as well.
Definitely.
All right.
Definitely.
So again, thanks for taking the time to do this with us, Jai. The service that you guys are putting out is incredible, and I want to thank you for everything that you put together for the families that are in so need of this type of stuff.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to share our story a little bit, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us, and happy to try to help as much as we can.
Brooke, give me 2, 3, 4 months, and we should do a follow-up with Jai, and we'll do what was Charlie's experience, or how was it different?
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome.
Cool. Yeah. All right, guys, you guys have a great day.
You too.
We'll talk again soon, Jai.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jai.
Okay, bye.
Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jai from Our Family Wizard. If you'd like more information, just go to ourfamilywizard.com, ourfamilywizard.com. I'm already on, registered, ready to rock and roll. Get on there and see if it helps your family. For more about how to reach Brooke and his services and consulting and counseling and groups and classes, I've got a message coming to you right now. Listen in.
Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle.
Great.
And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about, and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well if they go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely, I do. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brooke@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Charlie.